guys, welcome or welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. It's so greatly appreciated. Truly is. So today we are going back down the Reddit rabbit hole again with some new stories. I have not read these stories, so I am blind reacting to them for the first time with you guys right now. So let's just start. Okay. Bridezilla tries to scam bridesmaids. So I don't even know your story yet, and I could probably tell you if you're scamming your bridesmaids that you definitely need a harsher word than Bridezilla. But let's find out. Several years ago, a friend of mine asked me to be a bridesmaid in her wedding. There were 6 of us plus the maid of honor, so 7 in total. The bride had picked out her dress already, one for the maid of honor and one for the bridesmaids. The dress itself was lovely, but a bit expensive at $400 each, since 2 of us were still in college and the rest had recently graduated. So how many? I was one of the 2 still in college, so money was super tight. Anyhow, the bride asked the maid of honor to coordinate with all of us for fittings, alterations, and such as one of her duties. The maid of honor decided she would pay for all the dresses on her credit card because she wanted the air miles, and we would pay her back directly. None of us minded, especially since she was going to let us pay her back in installments if we need it, and I definitely need it. It's really nice maid of honor. I wasn't able to go with everyone to pick up the dresses because finals week and planned to go by myself the following weekend. No big deal. The maid of honor said she would pay for mine on the group trip, but to call her if there were any issues with the dress itself, and she would handle it. Yeah, got a maid of honor there. I get there and the dress fits perfectly. The shop owner scoots off while I'm changing back into my street clothes since she has another client coming in, but confirms we're all set. As I'm walking out the door, another person working there yells out, "Hey, that'll be $200. I was stunned and totally mortified. I apologized and explained how I thought the maid of honor had paid for it the weekend before. The shop owner comes running over to defuse the situation and confirm the dress was paid for already. I turned to walk out and suddenly realized she said 200 and not 400. Long story short, the dress was only $200. Bitch. When I confronted the maid of honor about it, she spilled the beans. Apparently, the bride and maid of honor plotted together to charge us double to help pay for the bride's dress. Oh my God. I let the rest of the bridesmaids know, and 4 of us dropped out of the wedding immediately, as you should. I guess I half expected it to leak to the other shaming groups, but I was unprepared for it to be blasted everywhere and come full circle. I don't even know where to begin. If I write it all out, will you share anonymously like the last time? I will. The wedding took place several years ago, almost a full 10 now, and I hadn't spoken to the bride and maid of honor since. The only other people I knew were the 3 other bridesmaids that dropped out with me. The 2 other bridesmaids were cousins of the bride, and they agreed to continue on as a favor to their mom, the bride's aunt, to avoid family drama. More on them in a bit. Fast forward to now. Got an email from the maid of honor who wanted to apologize again. She wasn't making excuses for her behavior. On the contrary, she acknowledged her wrongdoing and said she still felt incapable of saying no to the bride or her friend. She was pretty disgusted with herself and relieved when I confronted her. To her credit, she said as much back then. They'd been friends forever, and it took her a really long time to see behind the mask and how toxic the friendship had always been and the part she played in it. For what it's worth, I believe her. Okay. A quick flashback. I hadn't yet paid for the dress when the truth came out, so I just turned it over to the maid of honor. The 3 other bridesmaids got their money back immediately without any hassle. The maid of honor apologized like crazy at the time to all of us, but we just wrote her, the bride, and the whole situation off. None of us ever heard from the bride. No apologies, nothing. Turns out the bride never reimbursed the maid of honor for anything. Initially, the bride said she would repay her, but after the wedding, everything changed. She said if the maid of honor hadn't spilled the beans, she wouldn't be out all the money, and it's the price paid for being a disloyal friend. And the maid of honor wasn't just out the $200 times 6 bridesmaid dresses. The bride also convinced the maid of honor to charge the wedding dress because it would be easier for the bride to pay off the balance at the end. When the maid of honor threatened to take the bride to court, the bride said her cousins, the 2 bridesmaids, would say the maid of honor came up with the whole scheme and have her arrested for fraud. She found out years later the cousins never agreed to such a thing and would have been willing to go to court and say the exact opposite. They were disgusted by the whole situation too and wanted to drop out, but their mother, the bride's aunt, pushed them to keep appearances up for the family. They even told the maid of honor the replacement bridesmaids paid the bride $200 cash for each dress, none of which made it to the maid of honor. I almost forgot the funny part. The bride told her future husband the 4 of us dropped out because we were jealous of her. So her whole family plus the maid of honor knew the truth, but not the future husband nor anyone in his family had any clue. I mean, do you think your future husband really agreed that 4 of your bridesmaids dropped out of your wedding because they were jealous of the bride? Because I feel like if he really believed that, well, then he's just stupid also. I guess if he's marrying you, he's got pretty... There's also much more behind the scenes the maid of honor was privy to that we didn't see, wouldn't anyway, after we dropped out. Apparently, the bride manipulated her entire family into paying for most of the wedding and the honeymoon. The dresses were supposed to be her one and only responsibility, and likewise, the future husband was responsible for the suits. That's not what she had told us at the time, and even bragged her future husband was paying for everything. The bride also tried to manipulate her future in-laws into buying her a new car as a wedding present. They didn't, and in revenge, she interrupted the mother and son dance just moments after it started. Looked at the maid of honor and said, "Watch this," waltzed out onto the floor and basically shoved her new mother-in-law out of the way. She also accused the reception waitstaff of trying to ruin the photos by getting in the way of the photographer as they were serving the guests. Even after the photographer confirmed they were not in any of the shots, she still insisted they would have to personally reimburse her, even though she never paid for anything in the first place. Oh, you're scammy and dirty. You're a scammy, dirty bitch. Oh, it gets worse. At the brunch the morning after, the maid of honor said the bride gave a short toast to herself and didn't thank anyone and barely acknowledged her new husband. As for the maid of honor, she says she tried to collect the money she was owed, but eventually accepted it was gone and cut off all ties. Even still, the bride would reach out every couple of months to ask if she was done being such a bitch yet. When the maid of honor blocked her number, the bride spread rumors about the maid of honor and her fiancé, saying that he was an illegal and marrying her only for the green card, and claimed they used government assistance to pay for the wedding. Meanwhile, he already had become an American citizen long before they met, and is one before they met, and is a ridiculously successful software engineer who paid for the entire wedding himself and took not only his immediate family but hers to Hawaii for the honeymoon. The bride was just jealous the maid of honor had everything she wanted. Sounds about right. As for the bride, she's on divorce number 2 already and estranged from her entire family because they got tired of her manipulating and using them too. I think that's everything she shared with me. I'll reach out if I remember anything else. Please make sure my name is covered. Bridesmaidzilla ruins 12-year friendship over a speech. At a wedding I attended, and it's honestly so ridiculous you think it happened in a movie, but it was real and cringeworthy, but also hilarious, so I'm sharing it with you all. My friend was getting married to the love of her life and had one of her best friends be a bridesmaid in the wedding. They had been best friends for 12 years, and both of them were in my friend group, so I've witnessed their relationship up close. The bridesmaid is a girl who we always say lives in her own head with no idea how the real world works. Very spoiled. At 32, she still lived at home, and her parents paid all her bills. Must be nice. She then suggested they move out of the house so her and her boyfriend could live together in the nice house. Wait, her parents moved out? Somehow they agreed. Yeah. So they bought themselves a. Wait. Who moved out? Somehow they agreed. So they bought themselves a condo and continue to pay. The parents moved out and continue to pay for their daughter to live in their house. She's still in school working on a degree that should have taken her 2 years, but she's on year 7 of it.
A lot of people go to college for 7 years.
I know. They're called doctors.
Constantly complaining about having group projects that don't go well, but it's always her parents' fault. Common denominator, baby. If every single person you've worked with has issues, it's most likely you're the one that's hard to work with. And knowing her, I could tell you that she's very hard to be around. Backstory aside, she's in the wedding. Leading up to the wedding, you could tell things weren't going well. I walked in on the bridesmaid, crying, screaming at the bride about how she was trying to do something nice for the bride. I immediately walked out because it was ugly. Bride insisted she didn't want to talk about the bridesmaid leading up to the wedding. But after the disastrous speech, she let it all out. One of the big issues was the plans to get ready the day of the wedding. The bridesmaid suggested a makeup artist for the bride, who then hired that makeup artist and her assistant to do the bride, mother of the bride, maid of honor, 3 bridesmaids the morning of the wedding. Bride said the makeup artist would do her, her mother, and the maid of honor, and the assistant would do the 3 bridesmaids. The bridesmaid then threw a fit because it was her makeup artist, so there was no way the assistant would be doing her. She needed to be done by the main artist, and she should go first. Bride tries to explain that it was most important to do herself, her mother, and the maid of honor. Drama ensues. The bride's not wrong. Let the bride have her day. What the fuck do you care? Seriously. The bride sits her down and tries to explain that her wedding day is about her. Every other day of their friendship is always about the bridesmaid, so she really needed to let her wedding day be about her. The message didn't really get through. Leading up to the wedding, the bridesmaid was insistent on doing a speech. The groom told the bride multiple times to just say no because he knew it wouldn't go well. But the bride caved because there was no saying no to the bridesmaid. Speech time comes along and it was a train wreck. The bridesmaid leads off with how they've been friends for 12 years, but it would have been longer. God. She wanted to be friends with the bride long before that, but the bride was mean to her and would make fun of her with her other friends. She then said they had to be friends when one day she asked the bride if her pants made her look fat, and the bride said yes. She knew that honesty was something she needed in life. Cue everyone wide-eyed, staring in disbelief that she just painted the bride to be a huge bitch. Bridesmaid goes on to talk about the 2 times her own boyfriend tried to break up with her. Those stories have nothing to do with the bride. She never even mentioned the bride. To top it off, her boyfriend was at the wedding. Now, totally red in the face. Spoiler alert, they're still together and now married. Unbelievable. Seriously. The speech wrapped up with a well wish to the couple. She never turned any of her stories around to say anything nice about the bride. Just shit on her in the first story and then talked about herself for the rest. Our entire table was sitting there in shock, trying to discreetly yell at her to stop talking and sit down and probably shut the fuck up. It was hilarious but painful to watch. The next day, their friendship ended. Not because of the awful speech, not because the bride was hurt by the speech and her behavior leading up to the wedding, but because the bridesmaid was upset the bride didn't like the speech. Genuinely thought she made a good, thoughtful speech and the bride should have loved it. The bride told her honestly that it was rude and in poor taste and was all about the bridesmaid. I guess she didn't appreciate her honesty after all, because the bridesmaid couldn't forgive her for not liking that speech, and that was the end of their friendship. I think it got off easy, bride. I do. Okay, one more. Maid of honor steals money that was intended for the bachelorette party. 23 female, getting married in a couple days. Most of this is in the last 2 weeks. My maid of honor, 26 female, was in charge of planning my bachelorette party, which I wanted to be a surprise. We live in a city, but none of us live downtown. So I was hoping for a hotel room downtown and having a fun night out with friends. Maybe a brunch. Most of the bridal party lived locally, but 2 girls flew in for it. When Em picked me up 2 weeks ago on Friday, I was excited to see where we were going and what we were doing. We ended up going to Em's 1-bedroom townhouse and spent the whole weekend there. There are 8 of us, so it was cramped, and we kept running into issues with only 1 bathroom. On Friday night, we had games and ordered pizza. Saturday, we had a mimosa bar, went shopping, ordered food, and watched a movie. Before parting ways on Sunday. It wasn't the bachelorette party of my dreams. I wouldn't mine either. Or a particularly fun weekend, but it was okay and I appreciated it. Last weekend, my fiance, 32 male, had just returned from a work trip. I hadn't caught him up to speed on the party because there wasn't much to report. Seriously. But when he returned, we were chatting and I told him about the party. He looked confused but said nothing else that evening. The next day, I got a message from Em asking to meet up to talk about something. She revealed that the fiance had given her a significant amount of money over a year ago with the intention that it was to pay for a bachelorette party. It would have been enough to pay for the entire bridal party to do a week-long vacation out of town, including airfare, hotel, food, drinks, and fun. So you locked her up in your 1-bedroom townhouse with 7 other girls? I wasn't expecting this type of event. A weekend downtown would have been wonderful. And even though the party at her home wasn't what I hoped for, I was fine with it because I got to be with all of my friends. It was sweet. She instead used the money to pay off her credit card debt and hoped that no one would notice. Did you think this wasn't going to get back to the fiance? I just want to know, like, did you seriously think this was never going to get back to him? Did you think that he wasn't going to ask her about her weekend considering he paid for it? I told her I needed some time to process and went home. After talking with the fiance about it, I decided that the best action would be to remove her from the wedding. I came to this decision because I don't feel I could trust her and don't want her standing next to me at my wedding. I slept on it overnight and sent her a text saying this on Monday. Since then, I have been getting texts from her mom and boyfriend telling me how awful I am for doing this since I didn't need a big party and my bridesmaid was able to financially benefit. Your bridesmaid was able to financially benefit on stolen money. My mom is also against removing her from the wedding, as she's like a sister to our family and it would be tragic for me to get married without her there. No, it wouldn't. No, it would not. The rest of the bridal party is split, with half saying I shouldn't have kicked her out and the other half agreeing with me. What? My bridesmaid has called me crying because she already has her dress and she can't wear it anywhere else. At this point, I want the wedding to be over with so I can be on my honeymoon and not have to deal with these people. Was my action too extreme? No, absolutely not. I think your mother's response was too extreme. I think the bridesmaids that disagree with you, their response is too extreme. I think her mother response is too extreme. I think her boyfriend's response is too extreme. I think she's an asshole, and I think you need to get far fucking away from her and never look back. If you guys are still here, thank you, thank you, thank you. I love you and I appreciate you so, so, so very much. Please like, subscribe, and comment if you haven't yet and you feel so inclined to, because it really helps me out. I really, really appreciate it. And until next time, stay safe out there.